Hey guys, Falcon 25, you're watching the launch of CRS-16. Let's get back to live. Just a minute and 10 seconds out until launch.
Ground gas closeout's complete.
Dragon is in startup. Falcon 9's in startup.
T-minus 50.
Stage 2 birds for flight. For launch. Stage 1's at startup pressures.
Minus 15 seconds.
And Falcon 9's configured for flight.
T-minus 10. 9. 8.
9,
7.
8, 7, 6, 5,
4.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ignition.
Liftoff.
And lift off the Falcon 9. Carrying the Dragon on CRS-16 to the space station. Well, after me, that was far more difficult to say than I was expecting it to. Yeah, you can see that's Slick 40, not Slick 39. Wait, that's not even Slick 39, sorry, that's just Launch Complex 39, LC. Not Space Launch Complex and Slick. The thing about it, yeah, NASA doesn't need to specify whether it's just an...
35 seconds into flight, we've had a great liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40. Falcon 9 powered under the thrust of 1.6 million pounds. We're coming up on throttle bucket, preparing for maximum pressure. Propulsion reports that we are on target, throttle down, getting ready to pass through max Q.
I think you're just about making a Mach con.
We're passing through the range where aerodynamic loads are greatest on Dragon Falcon 9. The Merlin engines are now throttling back up. Propulsion reports the first stage systems are nominal. Great views from the cameras here. The blue skies, a nice daylight launch, showing Falcon 9 with Dragon headed downrange. Call out for MVAC engine chill. That means we are now chilling in the LOX turbo pump on the upper stage engine, getting ready for its ignition about 2.5 minutes into flight. Great view looking back from the first stage camera. Cape Canaveral in the background as we head northeast towards the International
You can see
Space Station
Launch Complex 39 just to
Next
the
major activity
right
is
of the
coming up
rocket.
in about 25 seconds.
Yeah, you can see
Down
it's
on
just
the 9 first stage
the two
engines.
larger pads.
We'll get stage
But now they're the only
separation
pads
and
visible.
ignition of the second stage to propel Falcon 9 and Dragon into Earth orbit.
And I believe
We
this is a
also
land
hope to
landing.
see on the left side the first stage flip around and light 3 engines to begin the path of coming back to landing zone 1 at Cape Canaveral.
Good, so it is a return to launch site. Miko?
Eco.
Stage flip. Upper stage ignition. And first stage flipping around. Boost back burn has started. Thing hasn't even flipped around yet. You can't.
Successful stage separation, ignition of the stage engine. We've also seen the first stage has done its flip maneuver, and the boost back burn has begun. We have lit 3 engines on the first stage. That's reducing the forward velocity and will be bringing it back towards Cape Canaveral.
Indeed.
Shutdown of the boost back burn is coming up in about 10 seconds. Second stage continues to look good on power.
Fairings have separated.
On the right-hand side, you may have seen an object passing the nozzle of
And
the
the
upper
boost
stage
back burn
engine.
has concluded.
That's the Dragon nose cap that's generated.
Oh, it's the
at this
nose
point
cap.
in
Never
flight.
mind, not even fairing. Yeah, fair enough.
We've heard the call-out shutdown
Forgot
on the
that this
boost back
was a
burn.
dragon.
First
somehow.
stage has completed the first of 3 planned
We'll
burns.
stay until the solar
and
arrays
the result
deploy.
in return to landing zone 1 on Cape Canaveral, just a few miles from where the first stage just lifted off. You can see the grid fins slowly opening. The large titanium fins, we allow them to open. Given the mass of the fins, we don't want them to open too rapidly.
I presume that they might break off.
Second stage continues to look good. First stage good. T plus 4 minutes into flight. All systems are go.
As you just heard from John, we had a beautiful, clear liftoff of the Falcon 9 from there's 2 things happening simultaneously. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see a camera that's on the top of that Falcon 9 first stage, currently pointed down the length of the first stage. You can see the titanium grid fins, and that will be executing its re-entry burn at about T plus 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And then on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the engine nozzle of that Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Is currently accelerating the Dragon spacecraft to match orbit with the International Space Station for its eventual berthing maneuvers.
It's an interesting semantic point that the process of connecting the Dragon to the space station is called berthing with an E. And that's because it is brought to the space station by the Canadarm2, while docking actually refers specifically to 2 spacecraft assistance.
External
This
meaning
stems
not
from
counting.
old shipping days in which ships
Those
would come
spacecraft.
into the harbor and dock themselves under their own power,
Or
while
be
larger
built
ships, which
with
are able to
tugboats.
easily navigate in harbors, are met by tugboats and then berthed. So, for the space station, the robotic Canadarm2 is like a tugboat for the Dragon spacecraft.
That Dragon spacecraft will make its way to orbit after it separates from the top of the second
There
stage.
you can see Cape
coming up
Canaveral
later in
below
the
the
mission.
first stage
But right
now.
now we are focused on both that second stage still accelerating and the first stage coming back down for a landing. Next step up for the first stage is going to be a re-entry burn. That's when it's going to light 3 of its Merlin engines to slow itself down as it hits the denser regions of the atmosphere. You can actually see on the left-hand side of your screen, that is Cape Canaveral and the coastline of Florida. You can see that first stage is oriented towards Cape Canaveral and currently about to decelerate. That re-entry burn will be happening in 30 seconds. In addition to those re-entry burns, you actually saw some what looked like frozen condensation floating off the side of the first stage. In addition to those burns, the first stage also uses those titanium grid fins to control itself, and cold gas thrusters, which are those bursts of air you can see periodically issuing from that first stage. Let's watch the re-entry burn happen in about 5 seconds.
Entry burn should be starting up shortly.
Stage 1 entry burn started.
There you go. So there is a bit of a delay from the camera aboard the Falcon 9 because it needs to get transmitted down and back up and all that.
You can see all three of the 9 of those Merlin engines light up right now, executing that re-entry burn and slowing that first stage down.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And we just heard the call out for an entry burn shutdown. Landing burn will begin. That's the next phase of landing at T plus 7 minutes and 35 seconds. We currently have an unbelievable view of Cape Canaveral from the bird's eye view.
It is absolutely amazing. I've been at Cape Canaveral for these lands before where you can feel those sonic booms in your chest. It is just so exciting along the Space Coast.
What's with the spin? Oh, something's gone wrong.
Stage 1 transonic.
I don't think that was meant to spin. And judging by the woes, it wasn't.
Stage 1 landing burn started.
Stage 2 continues along the nominal trajectory.
Right now, stage 2 is currently on a nominal trajectory. This is the primary mission to get that Dragon spacecraft into orbit.
Anyone going to tell us what happened with stage 1 there?
Right now, you can see that second stage engine is performing nominally with the Merlin vacuum engine glowing red hot.
I presume that was a successful landing then. But we didn't see any of it, SpaceX. Or was it not? Now I'm even more confused.
You may have heard the SpaceX team cheering in the background. It appears that the Stage 1 of the Falcon 9 has made a water landing.
Oh! What?
Still waiting on exact word for what
What?
happened there. Just a quick reminder.
Okay,
the
Seiko.
primary mission today is to bring the Dragon to the International Space Station. Right now, that mission is going spectacularly. All telemetry from Stage 2 looks
What just
phenomenal,
happened
and
then?
it looks like we are approaching a good orbit. Waiting for confirmation on that soon.
Now the Dragon spacecraft is set to arrive at the International Space
Please
Station
don't
in
leave us
just a few
hanging.
days, where our astronauts will be conducting that groundbreaking research that it is carrying up.
And right now, we did have confirmation of a good orbit from that second stage with the
That's
Dragon.
the interior of
Right
the
now, the
trunk of the
next phase
Dragon.
of the mission is going to be Dragon separation from the top of the second stage. We'll be able to see, you can actually see on your right-hand side of your screen, that's a view inside the trunk, the unpressurized cargo section of the Dragon. And I believe you can actually see some of the science experiments that are in the trunk right there.
I would presume
It's
that's
an
what that
exciting
is.
capability for the Dragon trunk to be able to store unpressurized cargo and take that up to the International Space Station. It's a very unique
Dragon is
capability.
separated.
And there it is. You can see the successful separation of that Dragon spacecraft from the top of the second stage. The trunk is open to the bottom. It's an unpressurized spacecraft, and I believe those are the two science experiments we're currently going to be mounted on the outside of the International Space Station. But yeah, so the next still has a long way to go. The next phase of its mission is going to be extending the solar array.
Sorry.
So you can actually see on your screen there's two kind of bumps in the side of the arrays, and in I believe at 12 minutes and 30 seconds those solar arrays are going to extend and unfurl so that the Dragon can start harvesting solar power and make way the rest of the way to the International Space Station.
Now, as you mentioned earlier, we've got some cargo inside the trunk of that spacecraft, which you could see as it was pulling away. We have two different experiments. The first one is the JEDI spacecraft, and that's JEDI with a G. It stands for the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Investigation. The JEDI spacecraft will actually measure and create 3D maps of Earth's tropical and temperate forests. These measurements help scientists determine how much carbon is stored in the world's forests. Also inside Dragon's trunk is the Robotic Refueling Mission 3, known as RRM-3. The investigation will demonstrate technologies to store and transfer methane, a type of cryogenic liquid, in space for the first time. That will help NASA develop capabilities to service and refuel spacecraft in orbit set for long-duration space flights.
And obviously, we here at SpaceX have an interest in long-term duration space flights for our eventual plans to send humans to Mars. So all of this research helps us, and we're excited to help NASA bringing that research up to the International Space Station. Like I was saying earlier, we are currently waiting for the Dragon solar array deploy coming up in about 35 seconds. Those solar panels are covered by shrouds on the side, carbon fiber shrouds, and so we might be able to get some video, hopefully, of those shrouds popping off and those solar arrays extending.
Wow.
Shortly after the solar array deploy, we won't see this, but the next step for Dragon is to open its GNC bay door. That stands for Guidance, Navigation, and Control Door. It's sort of like Dragon opening its eyes, exposing its sensors to space so it can find and lock onto the station and make its way the rest of the way towards the ISS's orbit.
There we
go.
go.
As you can see right there, that is a confirmation of Dragon's solar panels.
Oh, wait a second. Are we going to have another US Air Force bombing? Well, not bombing, but destroying the Falcon.
The rest of the way to the space station.
Dragon is now on its way to the space. When Dragon arrives in just a couple of days, the spacecraft and the space station will establish a direct communications link, and then Dragon will slowly approach, pausing at several checkpoints to ensure that everything is still going as expected. Eventually, Dragon approaches closer and closer. The European Space Agency astronaut Alexander Gerst will reach out and capture the Dragon. Next, ground commands will be sent to Mission Control, or from Mission Control in Houston, for the space station's robotic arm to reach out, rotate, and install it on the bottom of the space station's Harmony module.
Well, 13 and a half minutes since liftoff when that entire rocket was at Cape Canaveral. We had some great views. The weather cooperated today. The ground winds weren't too high. We were able to launch right out the opening of the window. You saw ascent, great stage separation. We did get some great views of the first stage and the grid fins coming back, but as you heard from some of the background noise and comments, the first stage did land in the water. Now the good news is we've got a lot of telemetry from it, so we'll be able to understand what happened and work to improve reliability as we always do here at SpaceX. Second stage went into great orbit. It was really precise. Dragon you saw separate, and now the solar rays coming out. All told, another great day for SpaceX and NASA.
Dragon's arrival, capture, and installation to the International Space Station will be streamed live on Saturday, December 8th on NASA TV and on SpaceX.com/webcast. Dragon will spend about 5 weeks attached to the space station before returning to Earth with cargo and research.
Please follow NASA and SpaceX on our social media pages for ongoing updates. I personally will be covering that early morning grapple and capture, so please tune in for that on Saturday morning. And please, thank you to NASA, the range, the FAA, and you, the viewer, for tuning in. We've greatly appreciated
Well, that was
these
interesting.
launches. Until next time.
I can't remember the last time they screwed up landing. Anyway, I can't tell you exactly when the last one was. Last one I remember was Well, it was pre-Block 5 anyway. But yeah, guys, that was launch CRS-16 on bottom 25. Goodbye.